Let me be the first to say that I might be overcorrecting this week for what happened last week. But I certainly hope that I'm not, as our Halifax Masquerainmen still need what wins we can get as we chase our first Prismatic Draft League championship. I'm going to consider it fair game to talk about spoilers for last week. If you're watching Week 6, you hopefully have already watched Week 5. We got absolutely blown out last week by the Cryptic Cryogonals. In a matchup where I said myself that I thought maybe I was playing it too straightforwardly, that I was falling back on what I knew and had used before with this very flexible team, yeah, we were just completely out-prepped by a very deserving winner on the Cryogonals side. But that means that I have to go back to the drawing board. I have gone back to the kitchen. I have cooked harder for this week's matchup. I have brought some prep that I have not brought before this season. And, you know, I've had a little bit of trouble getting the fine details of this team right. I had a couple of drafts that I thought were probably burning the kitchen down, but hopefully I've cooked just right in the end, and we'll see how it goes. This is actually my second time recording this week because I did it earlier with a different team, and then I changed my mind about some things. Before we get into all of that, let's look at the standings as we head into Week 6. So twice weekly standings update. Here it is. The Halifax Masquerainmen have dropped a couple of spots after the loss last week, but we are still currently sitting in a playoff spot right now, although there are a few different teams there breathing down our necks, and we can't be taking anything for granted right now. The Peaceful Porygons still sitting at the top as the lone undefeated team. Some other familiar faces near the top of the standings. We have been leapfrogged since last week by not only the Cryptic Cryogonals, but also this week's opponent, the 4-1 Foraging Furrets. Here's the matchup. The Furrets have Gothitelle, Politoed, Superior, Raichu, Furret, Poliwrath, Trapinch, Kingdra, Scrafty, Bellibolt, and Shroomish. Now, they have admittedly in their replays been playing favorites in terms of what Pokemon they tend to bring each week, but it is still very much a possibility that they bring something they haven't before and throw some kind of mix-up at us. That said, I'm mostly worried about the Superior, which we've seen snowball with Leaf Storm boosts and Sweep, usually with an Assault Vest set, about the Rain duo of Politoed and Kingdra, and to a lesser extent, but still a very real one, the electric duo of Raichu and Bellibolt, which we've seen sit next to each other on the field and spam Discharge, getting damage and paralysis into opponents, while Raichu also gets Lightning Rod boosts from Bellibolt, and Bellibolt gets Electromorphosis boosts from Raichu. They also really like to try to make this Furret shine. Furret is admittedly not the strongest Pokemon, but they've been bringing it often with a Choice Specs or Choice Band set, leading it, getting attacks off, really trying to make sure that it puts in work and gets some KOs. And look, if you ignore it, it can do that. It's not the best Pokemon, but it is one that they almost certainly will throw at us, and we have to take somewhat seriously. They also do have physical options in the Poliwrath and the Scrafty. I honestly am making a call this week that those Pokemon are relatively unlikely to show up because they have been in the Furret's past sets, and so I'm mostly prepared for my team to take special hits here, but that means if they do throw in the Poliwrath or the Scrafty, I might find myself in some trouble. That's the read that I'm making, but, it is possible that it'll be punished. They have a Perish Trap option with Politoed and Gothitelle. Last week we saw that enabled by the Shroomish, stalling things out with Spore, Leech Seed, and Substitute. And then, of course, they also have another Trapper in Trapinch, which is one of the very slowest Pokemon in the game, can take advantage of Trick Room if I set that up, or if they do with their Gothitelle. And also has the same attack stat as its fully evolved form Flygon. So Trapinch could be, I don't know if they've ever brought it to a set yet this season. I can't think of one, but it could be a low-key threat. That said, the Pokemon I'm most concerned about are the ones they reliably bring every week. Furret I'm not most concerned about, but I am expecting to see it. But Superior, Politoed, and Kingdra are the big ones. And then Raichu and Bellibolt are definitely also worth being alert for. With all of that in mind, the first Pokemon that I have prepared to bring to this matchup is Calm Mind Sinistcha. I've used Sinistcha as a support like 3 weeks in a row now. This time, Sinistcha is trying to be a win con in its own right. I think that Grass is generally the strongest defensive type into this Furret's roster, which again has mainly been spamming Grass, Water, and Electric type attacks, as well as Normal type, which is covered by Sinistcha's Ghost typing. So I think that if I'm able to get Calm Mind Sinistcha set up, Even with just Matcha Gotcha and Shadow Ball for attacking coverage, it has the potential to run away with the game. Getting it set up might be tricky because we do sometimes see overwhelming offense from the opponent's Rain Core, and because, again, I'm not preparing as hard for Poliwrath or Scrafty, and I definitely could be surprised by one of those. But into something like Discharge Spam, even Superior in the early turns, though I'd have to remove it quickly, Sinistcha should get opportunities to set up and get going. With leftovers for the item and Protect to give it some extra cover as well. As far as Sinistcha's Terra type goes, like I said, I think that Grass is generally the strongest defensive type in this matchup, and you will see a few Grass Terras on the rest of this team, but of course Sinistcha already being a Grass type, it doesn't really gain much from that, and I don't really know that Matcha Gotcha needs the extra boost to be doing a lot of damage into Pokemon like Politoed and Raichu, so I have gone with Fairy instead. It turns Sinistcha's Dark weakness into a resistance to help me cover at least a little bit for a possible Scrafty matchup. And of course, if they're running Ice coverage to hit Sinistcha, then at least I can make that neutral with the Fairy Terra. That said, Sinistcha already has very good typing in this matchup, so I think it's relatively unlikely that it terrestrializes. It just has the Fairy option as a switch up if I need it. Up next, another Pokemon that I think is generally strong into this matchup, Assault Vest Tinkaton. So this Tinkaton should be able to take some special hits. It has that Grass Terra that I've been talking about. And at the same time, Fake Out can support Sinistcha in setting up. It can support the next Pokemon in playing its role. And then Play Rough. So Gigaton Hammer is actually not that strong in this matchup because they have a lot of water and electric types. But Sinistcha's strongest attack, or Tinkaton's strongest attack, is just hard to ignore. And it can clean up things like Furret and maybe Superior. But I think Play Rough is important here, especially if I'm running an Assault Vest set and I need 4 attacks anyway, because the opponent has no natural Fairy resist on their team. They can terrestrialize something into a Poison, Steel, or Fire type if they want, but before Terra, Play Rough is completely unresisted, and I know Tinkaton doesn't hit that hard, but that neutral damage is still good to have, especially with Tinkaton, you know, being a Steel type, able to take hits from the likes of Superior and Furret, and hopefully deal out some damage back. The last move is kind of filler, and I had Feint penciled in there for a while to break Protects, but I'm not really playing a Tailwind game plan or anything this week. I don't know that I really need Feint. And I think Knockoff might be a bit more valuable for a couple of reasons. One, just removing items is generally good, especially if we get some choice items off of their Pokemon, which they like to spam so that their Pokemon don't hit as hard anymore. But also, they like to run Assault Vest Superior with the Ghost Terra type, and so knock off Tinkaton into that. You know, it could probably take a Leaf Storm, at least unboosted, and then might just clear that Superior out of the way, and that's often the biggest threat, the way they play this team. Up next, what I want to be my biggest immediate threat, instead of Clangorous Soul this week, it's Choice Specs kommo-o. Clangorous Soul might be valuable to get the same special attack boost with also boosted speed, but I'm not trying to set this kommo-o up this week. I just want it to get in and go. So if I lead kommo-o, I'm looking for quick KOs. And alternatively, it can create openings for Sinistcha, right, by drawing the opponent's attention away from it. Like with the Fairy type, the opponent has no natural Dragon resistance on their team. They need to terrestrialize a Pokemon to either Steel or Fairy if they want to resist Dragon type attacks, and if it's Fairy, then I have Tinkaton to cover that with Gigaton Hammer, as usual. But yeah, Choice Specs Clanging Scales is here to just try to rip through the opponent's team, get a couple of quick KOs, set up an endgame that I can win with Sinistcha or something else that you'll see soon in the back. I have Draco Meteor for an even more powerful option into a single target, if that's useful at some point. I have Flash Cannon so that I have another way to cover Fairies. I am thinking about putting Aura Sphere on here somewhere because I don't have a ton of coverage for Steel Terras, but right now I think I like Vacuum Wave because I also don't have very much speed control this week. In fact, I said that in the first take of this recording with a different version of the team, and now I have even less speed control than I did then. So Vacuum Wave might be important in a clutch situation, but Clanging Scales is meant to be the main move here. And I'm running Terra Ghost on kommo-o because the opponent has a few Fake Out users. They have Gothitelle, Raichu, and I think Scrafty also gets Fake Out. And while I don't think it's very likely that I see Scrafty, I do think it's likely that I see Raichu with Fake Out. So Kommo-o having that option, obviously it doesn't have Protect on a choice spec set, so having that option to bypass a fake out and still get its damage off is potentially important here, and I think it's worth running the Ghost Terra type. Up next, we have Gothorita here to support mainly Sinistra, but also able to support Kommo-o or maybe something else if the situation calls for it. As much as I've talked up how offensively scary my opponent's team is, they have some Pokemon that are situationally not that hard to deal with, right? Like, if Bellibolt is stuck on the field against Kommo-o or Sinistra, I'm probably doing okay. If Furret is stuck on the field against Sinistra or Tinkaton, that's an advantage for me as well, right? So I think, like the Florida Phalanx tried to demonstrate last week, trapping can potentially be very strong into this team, and just the Shadow Tag by itself can help to enable Sinistra to get set up. Gothorita is also running Trick Room. I was originally running Trick Room on Sinistra instead of Protect on a previous draft of this team, but I think given that Sinistra is trying to set up with Calm Mind, which can already be kind of slow, this is not a hard Trick Room team. I don't necessarily have to set Trick Room, but if I get a position where I want to set Trick Room, I think it's putting too much work onto Sinistra to have it try to set up and also set its own Trick Room. So I have offloaded the Trick Room burden onto Gothorita. Gothorita also is running Heal Pulse. It'll probably be the slowest Pokemon on the field in a lot of situations. Obviously not against something like Shroomish or Trapinch, but against something like Kingdra or Serperior or Raichu or Furret, it's probably the slowest Pokemon on the field. So it can get that healing off into a teammate before the opponent attacks under Trick Room, and then make something like Sinistra or even Kommo-o that much harder to break. It gives me a second Fake Out as well to support Kommo-o's offense or Sinistra's setup. So I have two Fake Out users now in Tinkaton and Gothorita. And then Psyshock is just to give it some option to attack. And you can see I've just maxed out Special Bulk on this Gothorita, and it's running the Grass Terra. I just realized I didn't talk about abilities on the last two Pokemon. Gothorita, pretty self-explanatory. Shadow Tag is what it's here for. Tinkaton is running Own Tempo because the opponent does have a possible Intimidate user in Scrafty. And Kommo-o, this is another matchup where none of its abilities seem super valuable, and I considered Bulletproof in case there's some Weather Ball stuff on the other side. But Soundproof will at least protect it from a Specs Furret Hyper Voice, which is a very real possibility coming from the other team. So I think that's marginally Kommo-o's best ability in this matchup. Gothorita we've already covered. Now, two Pokemon left, and I went back and forth a bunch on my choices for these last two slots. This is definitely one of those weeks where I would like to be able to bring 7 Pokemon, but unfortunately I can't. And the next pick might seem kind of counterintuitive into a rain matchup, but I actually think it's very valuable to be bringing Magmortar this week. I think that given that I'm trying to set up Sinistra, which, I mean, Sinistra is not the most specially bulky Pokemon. Calm Mind is a little bit slow. It definitely can be tricky to get it going. And given that some of my possible game plans involve Kommo-o just trying to take KOs quickly early on, I think Follow Me is too valuable in this matchup to ignore. And while Magmortar as a fire type is vulnerable to the opponent's Rain Core, one, as a fire type, it resists Serperior's Leaf Storm. It gives me a possible out with Flamethrower coverage into the Serperior. Granted, they tend to run Assault Vest, Terra Ghost on it, but, the option exists if they've committed their Terra elsewhere or something like that. But also, I can Terrasilize Magmortar into a Grass type. I don't think there's a ton of pressure on me this week to commit my Terra elsewhere. Like I said, I think it's relatively unlikely that I Terrasilize Sinistra, even if I'm trying to win a game with it. And Kommo-o has a very specific situational Terra type this week, so it's probably not too big a commitment to Terrasilize Magmortar if I'm relying on it to take a couple hits. And then with that Grass Terra, once again, it should be able to take at least one or two of the Grass, Water, and Electric attacks that this particular opponent likes to spam. So Magmortar is safer sitting on the field this week than it might look, although there obviously are reasons that it could be tricky to position against an opposing rain mode. But yeah, that Follow Me cover for Kommo-o and Sinistra is, I think, too valuable to ignore. I can also turn off the opponent's rain with Sunny Day, and then I have Flamethrower to help me cover the likes of Serperior. Plus, given that I'm sort of intentionally underprepared for my opponent's physical attackers, the chance that I snipe a Flame Body Burn onto something, obviously that's a luck-based idea, but, I might get into a situation where it's very nice if that actually works out. It might well pay off. And finally, I had Morgrem in the last slot, and then I swapped it out, and then I swapped it back in, and then I swapped it out again. It's a Azumarill in the last slot, but this time with Sap Sipper. So Sapsipper Azumarill is able to, so it's immune to Serperior's Leaf Storm. If I can position it correctly, it can deny Serperior the boost. Obviously, that means I'm not running huge power. I have all of the benefit of Azumarill's base 50 attack stat. I'm not expecting this Azumarill to do very much damage, but it does have Aqua Jet boosted by Rain with priority in a matchup where, again, I'm not bringing very much speed control. It is possible that Aqua Jet, picks off a weakened Pokemon that survived a hit from kommo-o or something like that, and then I do have that unresisted play rough again. That said, Azumarill is here mainly for Sapsipper. It can also take hits from Politoed and Kingdra, and it's also here for Perish Song. I kept talking earlier about having the option of running game plans where kommo-o tries to take some KOs quickly early on with Clanging Scales, and this is the follow-up to that. If kommo-o can knock out 2 Pokemon within the first couple turns, then I have the option to try to win the game with and I still have more than 2 Pokemon left. Then I have the option to try to win the game with Azumarill's Perish Song. Granted, I don't have a lot to stall the turns out this week, but I do have 2 Fake Out users. I don't have a ton of Protects on my team, but I have Protect on Sinistcha, not on Gothorita. Sinistcha, Magmortar, Azumarill. Yeah, that's not a lot, but yeah, if I have double Fake Out, and if I get an early Pokemon advantage, I have Perish Song available as a win con. I think the way I play this is I try to play toward that in, over the first 2 games, I try to play a kommo-o Azumarill game plan in one and some kind of Sinistcha game plan in the other. That way I have a couple different ways that I can attack this team. I was thinking earlier about what order to do those in, and I don't remember right now what I was thinking about that. Maybe try to set up Sinistcha game 1, and then try to blitz them with the surprise faster game plan with kommo-o game 2, but it might be better to do it the other way around, and it might also depend on what I see at preview. In any case, that's the main role that Azumarill is here to try to fill. The item is honestly kind of filler. I already have used the Citrus Berry on Magmortar, and I'm not sure what else to put on Azumarill, but with the Wakan Berry and Sapsipper, its main weaknesses into this team are covered. It's still weak to poison, but they're not very likely to have much poison coverage on this team. So the Wakan Berry is probably fine. I'll probably keep it, but it's possible that I'll have a different idea later. It does feel a little bit just kind of fillery right now because I couldn't think of a better item for Azumarill. But yeah, it might stick. I mean, they'll probably bring the Raichu, right? Anyway, that's the team for this week. We've gotten away from Clangorous Soul kommo-o supported by Sinistcha. Instead, it's Specs kommo-o, it's Calm Mind Sinistcha, and there are a couple of different game plans that I can build around them, with Tinkaton playing a tanky role, support from Gothorita and Magmortar, and Azumarill looking for that Perish Song endgame at least once in this set. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. Hopefully we can stay in the win column and shore up that playoff position, but you never know what's going to happen, right? And the only thing to do now is watch the set and find out. Okay, we're here. A little bit of scheduling weirdness this week. Mostly my fault. I had another commitment and guessed pretty badly about what time that would start, but we've made it work. And so we're both just thrown into this a little bit. It's all good though. Let's see if I can remember my game plans. Serperior. I've got Serperior, Politoed, Gothitelle, Furret, Kingdra, and Raichu, so nothing really out of the ordinary from this team. Most interesting thing is no Belly Bolt, and instead there's the Gothitelle. They can do Perish Trap if they want, at least they can't do the Shroomish stuff. I did have thoughts about, I talked about a couple of different game plans in the builder section, which I recorded, let's just say not today. And I did have thoughts in between on what order to run them in, but I'm not sure I remember everything now. So I have the Azumarill stuff with the Sapsipper. That's just defensively very strong into this team. Calm Mind Sinistcha, Specs kommo-o. I think I'm going to do the Calm Mind Sinistcha stuff game 1. We're going to lead Sinistcha. Honestly, let's lead Sinistcha kommo-o. Does that make sense? Let's lead Sinistcha Magmortar. We'll bring kommo-o and Tinkaton in the back and then figure out an adjustment for game 2 after that. We can save the Azumarill for later in the set. Alright, Furret and Superior are leading. They see our items. I don't really have an incentive to terrestrialize Magmortar already right off the bat, which is nice. Gonna go for a Calm Mind. I kind of want to click Sunny Day to try to catch a Politoed on the switch in, but I think... I mean, I'm not terribly worried about Sinistra being attacked this turn. I don't think I need Follow Me, which is kind of freeing. I actually could just hard switch to Tinkaton and have Fake Out Pressure next turn. I think that's pretty reasonable. Terra Ground Superior this time, okay. Still not that strong into Sinistra, but they have Shadow Claw on the Furret, and that's probably Choice Banded, right? That is how they tend to play that Pokemon. This does give me the option of doing Fake Out and Matcha Gotcha pretty safely. And I think I'm just going to do that. Fake Out into Furret, of course. If Tinkaton takes a +2 Terra Blast from Superior, that's not the end of the world. Sinistra just getting dropped like that is pretty bad, though. This game is already not going the way I hoped, to be sure. I'm just way out of position here. I'm just going to click Clanging Scales and Gigaton Hammer into the Superior slot, but at this point they could probably sweep a Superior if they want, and I might just have to be thinking about game 2. Actually, will remove the Superior here and get some damage into Politoed. There's Kingdra. I can think about sacking... I can think about sacking Magmortar, but there's not really much point. I guess we sack kommo-o instead. I can Terra Grass Tinkaton. That turns off a normal resist for when the Furret comes back, but it makes Tinkaton a lot safer into these two. I think I'm going to do it and just go for a play rough into Kingdra. We still don't take that Weather Ball crit super well, but I'm sure that would have KO'd without the Terra. And maybe I needed to remove Politoed here because they might just have too many threats on the field at this point. Yeah, I think I split up my targets too much here. I'm going to protect Magmortar this turn, try to get it through to the next turn. And I will try to take out the Politoed this time because of that spread damage with the Muddy Water. Okay, we do get past that Weather Ball, and the goal here is to... the goal here is to redirect Furret's attack next turn, but it doesn't work if Magmortar just drops to a Weather Ball. But hey, you can't say I didn't try. But yeah, it looks like we do lose game 1 here. The Sinistra just went down too quickly, so... with the Shadow Claw Furret on the field. So for game 2, we lead kommo-o. I think for game 2, we lead kommo-o with Gothorita. We have Fake Out Pressure. They can't switch. The Sinistra did not make a very good case for itself in game 1, but I do think it's still worth considering. But no, I think it's Tinkaton with the Terra Grass option again, and honestly Azumarill in game 2. That's a weird janky mode, it might go badly, but alright, we see this lead again. Just Clanging Scales immediately and Fake Out Superior. You're a normal Furret, is that going to one-shot something? I don't know, it's... Okay, Choice Banded Giga Impact, but no. kommo-o survives, takes out Furret, does good damage into Superior, but... We're not out of the woods yet, that's for sure. I'm going to go ahead and switch Azumarill in here. It walls Leaf Storm, and Politoed is not that scary to it. And given that Superior is faster than probably my whole team, I think it's time to set Trick Room. There's the Muddy Water, doesn't do too much to anything. Leaf Storm targets into Gothorita, but still not doing too much damage. We get the Trick Room up. Can I just Perish Song here, or is the Superior just too dangerous? I think I'm gonna... The thing is, I kind of want to play Rough Superior. The thing is, that just doesn't do very much. I think I'm going to double target Superior here with Play Rough and Psyshock and hope this KOs. Alright, the Play Rough did reasonable damage there. That's pretty funny that we got the attack drop and Contrary made it a boost. But yeah, we do get rid of Superior. And now I have Heal Pulse and Perish Song on the board. And a Pokemon is still in the back. 2 Pokemon, in fact. So I'm going to go straight for Heal Pulse and Perish Song here. And just try to get through these last few turns. We lose Gothorita, but that's fine. Trapping doesn't matter at this point. The problem is I need Tinkaton to survive, but I still have the Grass Terra available. And I have Fake Out here. I think I'm even down to play Rough into Kingdra. I could just double play Rough into Kingdra. It's going to be the fastest Pokemon on the field. Yep. And then I just need... Okay, that miss is nice. But yeah, Politoed is doing so little to Tinkaton, and I'm pretty sure it's choiced. The way they've played it this week and others. I'll double play Rough into that too, see what that does. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we just win with the Perish Song regardless at this point. So that went a lot better. The question is... I'll let Azumarill survive for stats purposes, and... just play Rough into the Politoed again. The question is, can I pull off something like this a second time in a row? The Terra Grass Tinkaton has been very good so far this week. It's really putting in work. Oh, I forgot that Azumarill would still be KO'd there. Whoops. That's fine. It's that or let kommo-o go down. Anyway, that went a lot better than the Sinistcha idea. I think the Sinistcha idea is pretty much dead. I think it just doesn't work into how hard their Pokemon hit. Even the Furret. Actually, I can consider Sinistcha for game 3, but again, the Furret... Or no, what I mean is, Azumarill and Tinkaton put in so much work in that last game, I don't think I have room for Sinistcha. I'm really tempted to just bring back the same Pokemon again. Or I think the alternative is I lead Gothorita Azumarill this time, and then I have Tinkaton ready to switch in on like a Giga Impact or something. I think that's an option. No, I'm just going to run back the same mode again, and if it doesn't work... Oh, we'll own that. Raichu, okay. So they're the one with Fake Out pressure this time, but... I can Terrasilize kommo-o and guarantee the Specs Clanging Scales. The thing is, I don't think I want to do that, because saving my Terra for Tinkaton has been so good so far in this set. I think I'm just going to accept the possible Fake Out on kommo-o, but if they fake kommo-o out, then they don't prevent Gothorita from setting Trick Room. So I think I get something good this turn either way. They fake out Gothorita and Leaf Storm it. They might be able to deny the Trick Room, but... we can either just find that... We can either just test that now, or I can switch to Azumarill. I actually think the switch to Azumarill is pretty reasonable, because then I also am threatening potentially a boosted Aqua Jet into Superior. If Clanging Scales just misses the KO, as it looks like it well might. And of course I have the Wakan Berry, so even if they Thunderbolt the Gothorita slot, that's not the end of the world. I think it does potentially take away the Perish endgame, but I think the switch to Azumarill is the call here. Fake Tears into kommo-o. Okay, they're looking to remove that, and they do. Okay, that didn't work out the way I hoped. But... I can Aqua Jet Raichu. And Gigaton Hammer Superior. Obviously they can switch right now because I don't have Gothorita on the field, but... This should be pretty strong if they don't switch, and they don't. We pick up Raichu. They don't know about the Sap Sipper. I haven't revealed it in all this time. So we do remove Superior with no more trouble there. Politoed and Kingdra are in. I'm actually not going to Terrasilize Tinkaton just yet, because I think these Pokemon are both choiced. And they do have the option to lock themselves into something to cover for that grass typing. So I'm going to switch out. Yeah, I'm going to see what they do. Switch out to Gothorita. And Azumarill is going to go straight for the Perish Song, because that is potentially a win con. And Azumarill should be hard for these Pokemon to remove quickly. That Terra Muddy Water does a lot. But it's also Muddy Water from the Politoed, so... yeah, I think Tinkaton with the Grass Terra and the Fake Out might be able to close this out, and that's pretty much what our hopes are riding on right now. So Terra Grass, Fake Out Kingdra, Azumarill can... I think Azumarill should Protect. I think it's valuable to still have it on the field next turn, if nothing else, to dilute the power of Muddy Water. The Fake Out is still worthwhile because it's one fewer attack that they get into Tinkaton. Still have to get through 2 more turns. But we'll just double play Rough into the Kingdra slot right now. That might be doing too much damage to Tinkaton. Okay, they missed the Muddy Water from Politoed. That... it all comes down to this. One way or another. Last turn of the set. Come on, Assault Vest, Terra Grass, Tinkaton. You're carrying all our hopes and dreams here. We survived Kingdra's attack. We survived Politoed's attack. That miss earlier mattered. And the Halifax Masquerainmen take such a tense, hard-fought win. The original game plan was the Sinistcha setup that did not work at all. Superior sets up too quickly, and Furret with the Choice Banded Shadow Claw just overwhelmed. But we found the right adjustment in Game 2, got them with the Perish Song endgame, and then in Game 3, I didn't have a better idea than to run it back. And Terra Grass, Assault Vest, Tinkaton put in so much work, all 3 games, including the loss. And even then it came down to some luck, right? That Politoed Muddy Water on the last turn did 15.7%. If the previous one doesn't miss, that's probably a loss. Now, that means they had to hit like 4 Muddy Waters in a row, right? I'm not sure what the odds are. You know what? Let's drive up engagement here. Somebody else do the math in the comments on who was favored with them needing to hit all those Muddy Waters. But in the end, they missed 1, and that was just enough. GG's to the Foraging Furrets. Wild team and tough player to deal with. Definitely a matchup that had me in my head a fair bit, and it really could have gone either way. But the Halifax Masquerainmen are back in the win column, and at this point, in pretty good shape to make the playoffs with just 2 weeks left in the regular season. But we'll see, of course, how the rest of the week went in a few days.